Levin was vexed both at being hindered from shooting and at his horses getting stuck in the mud, and still more at the fact that neither Stepan Arkadyevitch nor Veslovsky helped him and the coachman to unharness the horses and get them out, since neither of them had the slightest notion of harnessing. Without vouchsafing a syllable in reply to Vasenka's protestations that it had been quite dry there, Levin worked in silence with the coachman at extricating the horses. But then, as he got warm at the work and saw how assiduously Veslovsky was tugging at the wagonette by one of the mudguards, so that he broke it indeed, Levin blamed himself for having under the influence of yesterday's feelings been too cold to Veslovsky, and tried to be particularly genial so as to smooth over his chilliness. When everything had been put right, and the carriage had been brought back to the road, Levin had the lunch served. Bon appétit, bon conscience. C'est poulet va tomber jusqu'au fond de mes bottes. Vasenka, who had recovered his spirits, quoted the French saying as he finished his second chicken. Well, now our troubles are over, now everything's going to go well. Only, to atone for my sins, I'm bound to sit on the box. That's so? Eh? No, no. I'll be your automaton. You shall see how I'll get you along, he answered, not letting go the rein, when Levin begged him to let the coachman drive. No, I must atone for my sins, and I'm very comfortable on the box. And he drove. Levin was a little afraid he would exhaust the horses, especially the chestnut, whom he did not know how to hold in, but unconsciously he fell under the influence of his gaiety and listened to the songs he sang all the way on the box, or the descriptions and representations he gave of driving in the English fashion, four in hand, and it was in the very best of spirits that after lunch they drove to the Gvozdyov marsh. Chapter 10. Vasenka drove the horses so smartly that they reached the marsh too early, while it was still hot. As they drew near this more important marsh, the chief aim of their expedition, Levin could not help considering how he could get rid of Vasenka and be free in his movements. Stepan Arkadyevitch evidently had the same desire, and on his face Levin saw the look of anxiety always present in a true sportsman when beginning shooting, together with a certain good-humored slyness peculiar to him. How shall we go? It's a splendid marsh, I see, and there are hawks, said Stepan Arkadyevitch, pointing to two great birds hovering over the reeds. Where there are hawks, there is sure to be game. Now, gentlemen, said Levin, pulling up his boots and examining the lock of his gun with rather a gloomy expression, do you see those reeds? He pointed to an oasis of blackish green in the huge half-mown wet meadow that stretched along the right bank of the river. The marsh begins here, straight in front of us. Do you see where it is greener? From here it runs to the right where the horses are, there are breeding places there, and grouse, and all round those reeds as far as that alder, and right up to the mill. Over there, do you see, where the pools are? That's the best place. There I once shot 17 snipe. We'll separate with the dogs and go in different directions, and then meet over there at the mill. Well, which shall go to left and which to right? Asked Stepan Arkadyevitch. It's wider to the right, you two go that way and I'll take the left, he said with apparent carelessness. Capital. We'll make the bigger bag. Yes, come along, Vasenka exclaimed. Levin could do nothing but agree, and they divided. As soon as they entered the marsh, the two dogs began hunting about together and made towards the green, slime-covered pool. Levin knew Laska's method, wary and indefinite. He knew the place too and expected a whole covey of snipe. Veslovsky, beside me, walk beside me, he said in a faint voice to his companion splashing in the water behind him. Levin could not help feeling an interest in the direction his gun was pointed, after that casual shot near the Kolpensky marsh. Oh, I won't get in your way, don't trouble about me. But Levin could not help troubling, and recalled Kitty's words at parting. Mind you don't shoot one another. The dogs came nearer and nearer, past each other, each pursuing its own scent. The expectation of snipe was so intense that to Levin the squelching sound of his own heel, as he drew it up out of the mire, seemed to be the call of a snipe, and he clutched and pressed the lock of his gun. Bang! Bang! Sounded almost in his ear. Vysenka had fired at a flock of ducks which was hovering over the marsh and flying at that moment towards the sportsman, far out of range. Before Levin had time to look round, there was the whir of one snipe, another, a third, and some 8 more rose one after another. Stepan Arkadyevitch hit one at the very moment when it was beginning its zigzag movements, and the snipe fell in a heap into the mud. Oblonsky aimed deliberately at another, still flying low in the reeds, and together with the report of the shot, that snipe too fell, and it could be seen fluttering out where the sedge had been cut, its unhurt wing showing white beneath. Levin was not so lucky. He aimed at his first bird too low, and missed. He aimed at it again, just as it was rising, but at that instant another snipe flew up at his very feet, distracting him so that he missed again. While they were loading their guns, another snipe rose, and Veslovsky, who had had time to load again, sent 2 charges of small shot into the water. Stepan Arkadyevitch picked up his snipe, and with sparkling eyes looked at Levin. "Well, now let us separate," said Stepan Arkadyevitch, and limping on his left foot, holding his gun in readiness and whistling to his dog, he walked off in one direction. Levin and Veslovsky walked in the other. It always happened with Levin that when his first shots were a failure he got hot and out of temper, and shot badly the whole day. So it was that day. The snipe showed themselves in numbers. They kept flying up from just under the dogs, from under the sportsmen's legs, and Levin might have retrieved his ill luck. But the more he shot, the more he felt disgraced in the eyes of Veslovsky, who kept popping away merrily and indiscriminately, killing nothing, and not in the slightest abashed by his ill success. Levin, in feverish haste, could not restrain himself, got more and more out of temper, and ended by shooting almost without a hope of hitting. Laska, indeed, seemed to understand this. She began looking more languidly, and gazed back at the sportsman, as it were, with perplexity or reproach in her eyes. Shots followed shots in rapid succession. The smoke of the powder hung about the sportsman, while in the great roomy net of the game bag there were only 3 light little snipe. and of these one had been killed by Veslovsky alone, and one by both of them together. Meanwhile from the other side of the marsh came the sound of Stepan Arkadyevitch's shots, not frequent, but, as Levin fancied, well directed, for almost after each they heard croc, croc, underscore aporte underscore. This excited Levin still more. The snipe were floating continually in the air over the reeds. Their whirring wings close to the earth, and their harsh cries high in the air, could be heard on all sides. The snipe that had risen first and flown up into the air, settled again before the sportsman. Instead of two hawks there were now dozens of them hovering with shrill cries over the marsh.